In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create an ocean texture placed onto a geometric plane. I'm also going to show you how to create a so-called sky sphere. That's a sphere that creates an immersive environment for our ocean texture scene, and to be able to put some textures on the inside of the sphere, or just ordinary material colours if we want to. So the first thing is to create a new polygon primitive plane. The R key on the keyboard and scale the plane out to about the size of the Maya ground plane. Next we'll right click and choose Assign New Material, and from the list come down to Ocean Shader. There are various parameters we can set, but for what we need we can go with the default values. The next thing I'm going to do is to set up the renderer, because I'm going to render out several images to assess the scene and what it looks like in terms of its authenticity and lighting. I need to set the render up fairly early on. So let's select the render globals, and I'm going to select mental ray, but it's not on the list. If it's not on the list, then all I need to do is to go and Window, Settings Preferences. I'm going to plug that plugin in and scroll down, and here we are. It's the Maya to mental ray, Maya to MR, Maya to mental ray, and I'm going to select that to load it and close. Go back to the render global settings, choose, there we are, mental ray, and in the mental ray tab look at quality, select production fine trace. Everything else stays as is, except this time we'll want ray tracing switch on, so leave that box checked, because that'll give us some nice effects of the light shining on the ocean surface. On the common tab then we'll select a high quality uncompressed file format, TIFF, T-I-F-F, tagged image file format, and we'll also make sure we've got a reasonable resolution for the start, which is 640 by 480. Everything else remains the same. Close that. Now let's render that scene and see what it looks like. We've got some aspect of a ocean texture there. What I'm going to now is to create an ambient light to give more kind of volume light to the scene. So create lights, ambient light, and in my viewports I'll need to just raise that up so it's above the ocean. We can come back and adjust it. There is a sense of trying out different effects and settings and seeing what things look like once you render the scene. So it's an interactive process in that regard. There's a little bit more light there. The next thing I'm going to do is to create a camera. Create camera from the top view, and I'm going to just bring it back slightly, like so. And the next thing I'm going to do is to go to the settings attribute editor and just rename that camera C-Cam, so I know what it's doing and I can select it. If I want to just select that particular object, I know that I can select C-Cam and that'll be the one I want. And going back to my top view, I can choose to select panels and look through selected. So it's actually now looking through that camera. And now let's render that and see what it looks like. Because we're close now to the surface of the texture, the ocean texture, we'll get a better sense of how it looks. What I'm going to do is just tumble the camera slightly to get a better viewpoint, so I'm not looking straight at the surface, slightly down onto it, and then render the view. and that's looking better. The next thing I'm going to do now is to create a sphere, and I'm going to do that in the front viewport. Just zoom back a little bit, create polygon primitive sphere, and again I need to scale it up quite dramatically so it's larger than my ocean plane texture. So the ocean plane scene, if you like, sits within the sphere. I'm going to also scale the sphere slightly to get a more kind of compressed looking sphere. Have a look in that view as well. Looks okay. And the top view, have a look at that's looking okay. Let's go into the perspective view. Now normally when we're looking at geometric objects, we're looking at them from their exterior, and so any materials or colours we apply to those objects would look correct. But in this case we're going to be looking from this inside the object, so we're going to be looking at the surface that's inside. And so we have to make a slight modification by making sure polygon menu selecting there. We go to normals and we reverse the normals. Normals are the geometric property that show the textures and colours on the surface towards the direction that we want. So normally we want the direction to be away from the surface, but in this instance we want the surface to show those properties from inside. Reversing the normals will give that effect. Right, now I've reversed the normals. With my sky sphere selected, I can now apply a material, in this case a colour, to the sphere. I'm going to choose a blend and I'm going to change the colour using the colour selector. So probably nice lightish blue perhaps. Should do okay. And again, need to render that scene from the viewport of the sea cam. That's not too bad. Some adjustments could be made to the lighting at the back towards the horizon. So we've created an ocean texture straight onto a polygon plane, scaled it up, and then created an ambient light to give a sense of kind of daylight on in the scene. And then we created a large scaled polygon sphere. And then the important step was to go to from the polygons menu, go to the normals menu and choose reverse normals, so that we could apply then colours and textures inside the sphere and they would look correct. So there we are. All we need now is to have something of interest in the ocean there, a boat or perhaps an island. So that concludes this tutorial. Thanks for watching.